as a longtime fan of the Star Trek universe, I must say that this article has filled my heart with joy and excitement. Growing up, The Next Generation was a beacon of hope and inspiration for me, and seeing it continue to evolve through shows like Lower Decks is truly remarkable. Attention, potential plot reveals for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 7, fully dilated. As a diehard Star Trek fan, I can't wait to dive into Season 5, Episode 7 of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled Fully Dilated. In this thrilling adventure, my favorite characters, Lieutenants Beckett Mariner, T'Vana Tendi, and T'Lyn, find themselves undergoing a Starfleet surgical procedure for an away mission primitive pre-warp solution of Number 3. And Lower Decks brings back Data and TNG's USS Enterprise D, like Star Trek Generations, never happened. And the time is the fire in which the Purple Enterprise D burns in the realm where Lieutenant Commander Data hails from. The events of Star Trek Generations have yet to unfold, should they ever occur. Instead, we find ourselves in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, set in the year 2381, a decade following the incidents detailed in Star Trek Generations. This significant time frame saw Captain Picard interact with Captain James T. Kirk, portrayed by William Shatner, and witness Kirk's demise. Moreover, the Galaxy-class USS Enterprise B was tragically destroyed by Klingons, with the remaining saucer section crashing onto Viridian 3 in an alternate version of the Star Trek universe known as the Purple Dimension. The USS Enterprise D survived its destruction in Star Trek Generations. This takes place a decade later than what occurred in the original timeline. And so additionally, Data, who perished in Star Trek Nemesis in 2379, is alive and thriving in this dimension, implying that Star Trek Nemesis never transpired there. In this reality, Data remains as a lieutenant commander, meaning Commander William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, continues to serve as the first officer at the Enterprise rather than becoming Captain First to USS Titan. How Star Trek Lower Decks Purple Dimension is different from TNG, and I mentioned Star Trek The Next Generation is still happening in the Purple Dimension. In my perspective, it seems plausible that the peculiar dimension depicted in Star Trek Lower Decks could be an alternate reality where Star Trek The Next Generation is still unfolding. The time frame in this realm might not align with the timeline of the Prime Universe's Star Trek series. If Captain Picard were to command a purple-hued USS Enterprise D, it would be under the circumstance that the Enterprise D has been destroyed. However, it's conceivable that the events of Star Trek The Next Generation don't transpire at all in this dimension. It's also feasible that the movies associated with Star Trek The Next Generation either never took place or occurred much later in this alternate reality. Intriguingly, Lieutenant Commander Data, sporting a purple hue this time, shares with Lieutenant T'Vana Tendi that his head has been detached from his body in the past. This event is reminiscent of the two-parter from seasons 5 and 6, titled Time's Arrow, where Data and the crew of the USS Enterprise D journeyed to 19th century San Francisco through time travel. Interestingly, in a later episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5, Episode 7, this is the second instance where Data's purple head is separated from his body, despite their experiences traversing alternate timelines. Data and Geordi LaForge remain good friends, which is heartening to see. Brent Spiner plays TNG's Data again in Star Trek Lower Decks. Spiner has reprised Data since Star Trek Nemesis. Brent Spiner returning to voice Data in Season 5 is a welcome surprise. Spiner is iconic as the beloved android, and Brent is among the biggest legacy guest stars ever on Spiner. Also joins Jonathan Frakes as Captain Will Riker and Marie Curtis as Counselor Deanna Troi, as well as John Delancey as cast members who have appeared on. It's an absolute joy to see Brent Spiner reprising his iconic role as the original Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, even though this time it's a character from a vibrant alternate dimension following Data's demise in Star Trek Nemesis back in 2002. I was thrilled to see Spiner bring Data back to life, albeit briefly, during Star Trek Picard Season 1. In the very first scene of Star Trek Picard, he appeared in a dream sequence playing poker with Jean-Luc on the USS Enterprise D, and throughout the series premiere Remembrance, made several more appearances, making my heart skip a beat every time. In the final episode of Star Trek Picard Season 1, Brent Spiner portrayed the character Data nearing his end. It was noticeable that playing an android who doesn't age has become challenging for Brent in his appearance. To overcome this issue in Star Trek Picard Season 3, they revived Data in a synthetic body that ages, enabling Brent Spiner to convincingly portray him without the need for de-aging techniques. Meanwhile, the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks brings back the original Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, but this version hails from an alternate purple reality. Will Patrick Stewart's Captain Picard appear before Star Trek Lower Decks ends? Captain Picard would be the ultimate get for Star Trek Lower Decks. As a diehard Trekkie, I can't contain my excitement about the final 3 episodes of Season 5, streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. The anticipation is palpable as we eagerly await perhaps the most coveted desk voice on our wish list. None other than Sir Patrick Stewart reprising his iconic role as Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Since Star Trek Lower Decks pays a heartfelt homage to the time period of Star Trek The Next Generation, especially TNG, it would be a significant moment for Captain Picard to make an appearance on the show. The USS Cerritos is always on the brink of transformation, with Mariner and her fellow lower deckers getting promoted from ensigns to lieutenants. Meanwhile, Captain Carol Freeman consistently strives for recognition for her California-class starship, having Captain Picard appear at the end of Star Trek Lower Decks would provide the Cerritos and Captain Freeman with the acknowledgement they deserve during the 7th episode of Season 5 in the series Star Trek Lower Decks. The character known as Purple Data, along with the USS Enterprise D, served as a clever application approach for the animated program to present a touch of the original Star Trek: The Next Generation while staying true to its storyline. As Mariner put it, the appearance of purple data in Lower Decks was fantastic and exactly what one would hope for. And it's possible that in the future we might learn more about the purple dimension of Star Trek Lower Decks, a realm where Star Trek The Next Generation continues, and possibly Star Trek Generations may never take place because